Trade of the day in the gambling sector. I've decided to cheer up and become a little less of a grumpy man when it comes to the whole gambling thing. I'm also interested by the shareholder dynamics. Gerbrand, of the ones we've talked about here tonight, the one that we discussed in advance as being the trade of the day is HCI, just simply because it's got those underlying Tsogo assets, but it does seem to be a bit of a value play at the moment. Just summarize for us quickly what the main attractions of HCI for you would be.
Yeah, I think the underlying net asset value is much higher at the moment. If you look at the gaming industry, I think Tsogo Sun earnings over the last year has been incredibly
that's listed,
well.
So you can add that.
So they own about 40% of that, which is about 30 billion market cap. That makes the other assets very cheap within the HCI.
And in particular
holding.
ETV, which you could manage or sort of value what by comparison to multi-choice, Naspers, that kind of thing.
Yes, and it's a good cash flow spinner. And you're sitting with an HCI call on that side, you sit with some of the bus services. So there's a lot of other businesses which could be unlocked in value as well if they do some.
And some of the smaller ones don't worry you, like Surdell and other bits and pieces down the line.
That was an old cash cow, but you must remember they also, what's positive on that side is I think they refurbished some of those industrial properties. Yeah. They've already got leases secured for 130,000 squares of meters for renting out. They've got some Gallagher Estate, that's another property they do own. So there's some property assets in there which is trading at a huge discount if you look at some of the other property companies in South Africa.
So in the bigger scheme of things, there's enough value there to drive it higher. Just explain for those people that saw this in their accounts, what happened with Niveus? How did Niveus come out of HCI, and what do you think they're up to with regard to Niveus?
We didn't own it at that stage, so I think it listed or unbundled at about 9 or 10 rand a share. I don't even know where it's trading at the moment because we don't own it.
And they put like Vukani, which is a sort of a low payout gaming sort of thing in there, and a few other assets. But it wasn't clear to me why they did that. The
KWV, etc. I think they took most of their loss-making assets, if you look nicely or closely to it. The engineering shop, Formex, that they closed, I think it made 4.7 million rand headline loss the previous year as well. They took their KWV, which was running at a loss that year as well, out. So I think they're sitting with the concentration of the better assets.
And of course HCI retains an asset there. But the important thing to note here is that if you buy HCI, you don't get that anymore. And it's a signal perhaps that the management team at the top, Copeland and Golding, are keen on working their assets, looking at what's what.
Yeah, certainly. And I think there's a lot of cash-making businesses within. And they have shown that they are good asset allocators with the money over time, if you look at the background of HCI.
Okay, now I'm going to pose another question to you. We already have an HCI position in the portfolio, and the reason is like 2.5 months ago when you discussed the sector, we came up with the same conclusion that this is the most interesting one. So if I'm remembering rightly, we got into them at around 94 Rand a share. Now I think they're trading at 105 or 106 or 107 or something. I haven't checked today. What do we do now? I mean, we're in the position, we've already got a gain on the position. Is it something where we want to perhaps double up and go super overweight in anticipation of a short or near-term catalyst? Or do you think this is something that we can hold along for a while, see where it goes, just be patient?
Well, I think if you have a case stake in it already, you're anyway going to be overweight against some of the benchmarks out there because it's not a huge share out there.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would just hold on to my stake. We are slowly accumulating still some of these shares, but I'm certainly not going to rush in after a 10% week into the share. But in any pullbacks, I'll probably
because you're right. I mean, it's not all that actively traded. It's got a big stake, I think, of 30-something%, which belongs to the South African Clothing Textile Workers Union, which is originally the empowerment entity which got them into all of these stakes. Management then has got a certain amount of stakes. So not the biggest and most liquid stock, also not one that people talk about that much. So it's not one where you want to get into a big hurry and sort of bid them higher just because you're in a big rush to accumulate.
Certainly, and I think the earnings are about 4 months out again. We just had them coming out with earnings, I think, in November or December. So the good news is already probably in at the moment. But you're probably going to see in 4 months, 5 months' time, you're going to see another set of good news coming out.